This is Ready, Set, Reiki, a podcast about Reiki and all energy work, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination, and on this Ready, Set, Reiki journey, I refer to myself as a guide rather than a host, as I too am traveling, helping, supporting others, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your guide, Tracy C. Wright, and this is Ready, Set, Reiki. Hello, beautiful listeners. Tracy C. Wright, Ready, Set, Reiki. So today on our journey, so excited to connect with this wonderful, amazing guest, Dr. Nima Rahmani. Now, is a leading expert in shadow work, something that, many of us healers definitely have to deal with. Emotional regulation, healing attachment wounds, and after a successful career as a chiropractor, he left the profession to dive deep into the realm of trauma healing and relationship transformation. Now he was driven by his own journey of overcoming toxic patterns and becoming trigger-proof. Can't wait to hear about this. Dr. Nima now helps high achievers, parents, professionals break free from the cycles of codependency and self-abandonment. So let's give a warm Ready, Set, Reiki welcome to Dr. Nima. Welcome.
It's so good to be here, Tracy. Can't wait to dive into this topic.
Wonderful. So let's begin our journey together. So I gave the listeners tiny bit about you, but I know there's a whole lot more to learn. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I teach what I most needed to learn. When I was younger, I was dealing with headaches, and I went to a chiropractor, and I had my first chiropractic adjustment, and I was like, wow, I want to do that. And so, at the age of 13, I was set, got all the courses, the university, what university I wanted to go to, what chiropractic school. And I just had my path really clearly set. And after I graduated from chiropractic school, I saw this man in my first year of chiropractic school. Before I graduated, there was a kind of like an assembly where a speaker was teaching. His name is Dr. John DeMartini, and he just blew my mind. And I just finished the session in tears. And I turned to my friend sitting next to me, Yvette, one of my classmates. I said, I want to learn to do what he just did, which was really to inspire and to help connect me to myself with a greater possibility. So when I graduated chiropractic, I went and I was always interested in learning about that intricate kind of relationship between the mind and the body. And it was through the understanding of learning how important it is to reframe our thoughts and perceptions to be, and stories, the narratives that we create to help us align our reality with who we would love to become, with an identity of who we'd love to become. And so I just kept studying that, John DeMartini's work, Byron Katie's work, and I just became hungry to learn, how can I learn how to shift my thoughts and perceptions to help me deal with my, childhood anxiety. This was really the big issue that I was working on resolving. And so as I learned more, I would integrate more into my practice. And slowly, I just felt inspired. After about 6-7 years of practice, 10 years of practice, you start to see patterns in patients. And I would notice that the patients that were coming in to see me for chiropractic care were actually dealing with stress-related disorders. Problems that, if you go upstream, had to do with stress, with attachments that were ruptured in their lives, with divorce, grief, loss, past trauma. They're still carrying it. And I was seeing on the table the result of unresolved wounding. So I started to put 2 and 2 together and create these little workshops in my office called Life Skills for a Stressful World, where I started the process back in 2009 of teaching patients how to become their own medicine. But it wasn't until I got into, I was married and then divorced, and then going through a series of failed relationships, one after another, about 8 or 9, until I finally met this One that really woke me up to a deeper awareness that I wasn't, what I wasn't aware of. I started realizing after this relationship became abusive that I was caught in a trauma bond. Now, abusive was happening both ways. There was emotional abuse, psychological abuse, and then I became physically abusive in reaction to the dynamic between us. And March 11th, 2018 was a moment, a night that I will never forget, where things just became so volatile that I actually physically, with an open hand, slapped her as a result of push and pull and huge volatility. So I had to wake up. It was a huge wake up call for me to go, all right, how did I end up here? How do I make sure that this never happens again? And number three, why is it that every relationship that I've ever had has been kind of in this toxic push and pull dynamic? It had never been physically violent ever, but it was always, I was more kind of like avoiding, running away, hiding, chase, it was this cat and mouse game of push and pull. And so, can I have a secure relationship? That was my question number three. Is it possible for me to break free from this really toxic push and pull distancer pursuer dynamic and have what I never had before, which was a secure relationship? And so, check, I figured that one out. Number two, number three. And once I figured that out, now I'm happily married with a beautiful 4-year-old son at the recording of this. Starts kindergarten in about a month. I thought, okay, number four, my karma has to become my dharma, my sacred purpose, my duty to teach people what I most needed. And this was where the world of my path to getting there from, anxious, avoidant, toxic, trauma bonded relationship that's codependent to healthy, secure attachment. That journey was understanding somatic experiencing, the polyvagal theory, intense, deep shadow work, somatic work, getting out of my head, getting into my body. I realized that all of the personal development work that I was doing was mainly more of a cognitive type of a bypass rather than to help me avoid feeling. And so I had to learn how to expand my capacity somatically for the sensations of all of the emotions that I was avoiding by using personal development work. And I realize now that most people doing personal development, most people doing therapy, most people in the spiritual kind of realm are actually either spiritually bypassing or cognitively bypassing, using the work to actually avoid pain. And it was what I discovered. It was only through expanding my capacity for sensation, moving through the pain, that I was able to heal. And I say heal not as a past tense, but as a ongoing lifestyle and practice. And the concept of becoming trigger proof was born.
Right. And sadly, through all the different things, I've learned as well that you have to go through it. And if not, you keep repeating those same cycles, which you did as well through your experiences. But in your journey, you had enough sense, to stop and say, wait a minute, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the merry-go-round. I want to get off. What can I do to change? What can I do to shift? And, one of the things as a very young teacher, the best advice I ever got for teaching children was, if it doesn't work, stop and redirect. And you can really bring that into your own journey, that if it's not working, what can you do? It's okay to change direction. So kudos for you for continuing on, and what a blessing, now married and have a child. I mean, and that shows you right there, that's the proof. That's the prize, right?
And it wouldn't have happened unless I experienced an epic wake-up call of those proportions. I mean, I'm a chiropractor. Here I am. I mean, I could sit here and say I was reacting and all this. There, I was being pushed and I was being mentally, psychologically abused, all of which is true. But the truth of the matter is, how did I get there? I had to really look at myself and take responsibility for how I got there. And when you do that, it's not about blaming them, you. the word blame and fault has to get thrown out the window. And we got to go back and understand the runway that led us to the point where we became the perfect person in that dynamic to heal. And once I did that, I'm like, wow, I love guiding people who are ready to heal, let go of that victim narrative, and to actually heal so that they can have healthy relationships, because you can't have a healthy relationship yet still be entrenched and ensnared and constrained by an identity of your past that you keep referring back to. You've got to be able to get a sense of completion with it. So I love guiding people who are ready to heal through that same path and process.
Beautiful. And I loved how you phrased it, the realm of trauma healing. And so this realm of trauma healing and energy work, would you say that this energy work found you, or, you found it?
Yeah. I mean, I was not like, I always knew that I wanted to help people raise their awareness and heal. The experience that I went through and how I reacted and what I became, that's not, I always say, I was like, that's not what I signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
My partner and I, we were both doing a lot of personal development. We were running a community, she was working in my business, and we were both stuck in our heads with our kind of like cognitive work that we had done. We hadn't really gone to the depths of it, but what happened as a result of our unconsciousness, I mean, first and foremost, the shame of it was just overwhelming, like to the point where I didn't think I could even move on. Like I remember I had took selfie videos of myself back in, it was around April of 2018, saying, I don't think I can ever teach again. When people find out how I reacted, how I responded, who I was, nobody's ever going to hire me again, because I had really worked hard to put on this persona of like healer. I'm entertaining. I would do rap songs. And so for me to react that way was like an ego death. Like I had to realize that I had a mask. I was performing this character of Dr. Nima. And so in the journey of like putting down this tendency to want to be the hero and rescuer of other people, now that I'm publicly being perceived as like the villain, I had to actually stop. I had to drop the mask and find out who the heck I really was. And it was in that journey of finding who I was beneath the character that I created to gain external validation that I realized that, hey, wait, I'm not alone. We all have stuff that we feel ashamed about. We all have, when we look back, there's regrets and there's shame of how we reacted to things, how we responded to things, how we've abandoned ourselves for the sake of connection. And so in my journey of like transparently sharing exactly where I went through, not as a kind of like a guru, as like somebody who's up on a mountaintop, but as a human being who had to integrate a lot of shame, that we're all one and the same. And so I didn't sign up for the exact form that I'm speaking about, talking about assault. I had to plead guilty in court to that experience. I had to go through the entire thing. It was me kind of surrendering that, okay, this isn't what I had in mind, universal intelligence, but I'm going to surrender, and I'd like to be used to help others. And so now when people hear my story, they message me saying, men and women saying, I've thank you for your honesty. I've actually been there too, on the receiving end. So I really want to work with you because, I want to help understand and actually heal. And then on the other side, where men and women are reaching out to me saying, yeah, I've become abusive too. I'm so ashamed. And you give me hope that there is a path to healing, that I can go from that toxic dynamic to something healthy. And that's really what I'm here to do, is to share my journey. That's quite embarrassing, to help other people realize that who you've been in the past does not necessarily have to be who you are in the future.
Right. And here's the part of your healing journey is taking accountability. And that's what you've done,
Yeah.
and you're helping, and then taking it a step further by helping others. I mean, what a
100%.
blessing is that, right? I always looked at it as every, saint has a past, every sinner has a future. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you're out there doing good deeds. I mean,
Yeah. And when
everyone something.
when I did research on this, the people who shine the greatest light have the darkest shadows, right?
Absolutely.
It's they came to that light from this really dark checkered past, So you look at anyone, you examine their biographies, and it'll be very similar. So my message.
Sure, sure. I mean, you probably think back in time of individuals who walked this earth, maybe with the exception of Jesus, right? That had some kind of thing going on and act like they're this guru. And then behind the scenes, you hear different stories as well. So, but
Yeah,
you're
I
taking,
lived that. Yeah, I lived that.
and you move forward and you're helping and being of service to others. So well done for that.
100%.
So, as you're going through your journey, helping others, you have this trigger proof method. What is some of the misconceptions about your work?
The biggest misconception about my work, great question. Wow. I love that you asked that. The biggest misconception, which is a distortion of the work, is that the work that I teach is all about blaming victims. Right. When, this is a very sensitive topic where we have in the trauma world where there are stages of healing. And that first stage is, you become victimized in a moment. Right. And there is pain. There's emotional pain. There is this experience of shame that can happen. It's like at first you're sitting there, you're blaming yourself. Right. And what happens is when we start to do therapy, we find groups, support groups, chat rooms, forums that then help us create language, create some language that helps us make sense of the situation. We use the term survivor. We use especially within the health field, people would, come to me with back pain and say, oh, the doctor says I have osteoarthritis. And so the biggest misconception is the dualistic nature of labels and diagnosis. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
So when you get a diagnosis like PTSD or trauma survivor, oh no, first and foremost, it's super helpful because you have all these symptoms. You're in a lot of pain and you're in so much shame that you think something's wrong with me. It was my fault. I'm to blame. And when you see a therapist or a content creator or some sort of book or something that helps bring language to your situation, no, I'm a survivor. I am a PTSD, I remember I was in a mastermind this one time and this guy was going through a legal battle with one of his clients that sued him for racism. And it wasn't racism. He was an opportunist. He was trying to use that to try to gain resources from him. And it was like a 2-year battle. And so as we were in the mastermind, he was talking about it. He was going through the legal process. And he was just down and he was spinning and ruminating over it. I turned to him and I said, dude, you have PTSD. And in that moment, when I brought language to what he was going through, it was like a weight was lifted. That happened in February. In June, we did another mastermind. He was there. He turned to me. He said, when you told me that day that I have PTSD and brought a language and understanding to my experience, it was the most liberating thing ever. And I said, yeah, that's great. Right? Because what happens is when we're in a state of despair and we're in that rumination, we're so overwhelmed with shame that it's almost like we feel validated when somebody says you have osteoarthritis, you have PTSD, you have OCD, and now you have a label for it. So initially there is this incredible moment of, I'm not a bad person. It's the thing. Now it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because what happens now is now that I have it, and especially in 2025, where we have now gotten to a place where we are I don't know how to, something weird has happened over the last 5 years. I don't know if you've seen it, where we are now pedestalizing these diagnoses and labels as like a badge of something to be super duper proud of. Let me state all of my disabilities. I want to state all of I have this, and this. And what happens is the shadow part of these diagnoses and labels is it becomes an identity that we keep ruminating on, and then we start to view the entire world through this lens, and we start to gain validation from it. We start to meet up with other people and go, oh, you have this too? Me too. Oh, wow. And one of the things that I noticed was when I was a chiropractor, my office was right above a medical clinic. And this guy who was a specialist medical doctor who specialized in creating a support group for people who had fibromyalgia. Have you ever seen patients with that? Talk to any practitioner who has dealt with patients who have been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And so these people would go into these support groups and say, oh, these are my symptoms. Oh, you too, me too. And it becomes this little swamp of comparative victimhood where, it's like people are competing over who's the victimist. It's like it becomes your identity, and now they're trapped by it. So it's this initial release of like, oh, I feel validated by this, but now the label becomes a prison. The label becomes a prison where you get PTSD, and now you're keeping a symptom diary to help validate the story of the diagnosis that you have. And so there's this thing that I've noticed as a chiropractor working in the health field for about 20 years. Ask any doctor who's been in practice for more than 10 years. They will validate and confirm what I'm saying, is that there's a hidden agenda, and it's hidden and it's unconscious, where if you're a child and the only time that you received validation from parents that were out to lunch, that were completely like dysregulated, disconnected, the only time was when you got sick or hurt, then you've now you've wired in an unconscious hidden agenda to use the diagnosis and label for what's called secondary gain. And so when I help people, the people that I help aren't those that are at that kind of like bottom level of despair, that are just diagnosed, that feel validated by it. The people that I work with have been trapped by the diagnosis for years. 5 years later, you're still calling yourself a survivor. I have fibromyalgia. I have PTSD. I have they wear their disorder like a badge. I'm gluten sensitive. I have celiac. Like it becomes the identity. And once you get to the level where you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, those are the people that I'm ready to work with, that I'm prepared to work with. Nobody before that. And when I'm helping those people, my job is to help them see the secondary hidden unconscious motives of being stuck in the first place. And when I present them this pathway of looking at the illness, the disorder, the label as an unconscious strategy, what am I gaining from this? I get accused of victim blaming. So that's the biggest misconception, which is that I have with my work, is that I'm blaming victims, that I'm saying it's their fault, and so it's a total distortion of the work. But it's part of the job. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I actually, and it's interesting you use the example osteoarthritis, because just last month I got diagnosed with that in my hip, and it's so interesting. Before we started our journey today, I told you about my sister passing, and in the last 5 years, I had my sister pass, my dad pass, a best friend pass, a dog pass, and then on top of all that, having to move to El Paso, Texas, and I really wasn't ready to go. And this is when the injury happened to the hip. Like, I am a yoga teacher and Reiki master, and I came out here, and within a month, boom, I had an injury, and everything became about the hip. And I'm like, what did I do? And I started beating myself. What did I do? Like, no one else in my family has this problem. And it's like, I need a new hip. The doctor said, like, you're too young to be in here. Why are you here? Like, and I'm like, And then it was this understanding that maybe, and it clicked, maybe it's because I've been so hesitant to move forward into my purpose. Like, I wasn't ready to go here. I wasn't ready to do this. Here, you need to go teach this and do that. And everything that happened from the loss of my sister broke my confidence down, and I was resisting. So it would make sense. Right foot forward, right leg. It was my right side of the body. Right. So it's been trying different modalities, sacral work, massages, going to the chiropractor, and I'm not feeling any pain, even though, the X last month shows, hey, this is
exactly. That's what I would say to people. That's exactly what I would say to people. People would come in and they'd be like, oh, doctor says it's osteoarthritis and there's nothing that they can do. And I said, oh, really? Lay down on the table. I do an adjustment and they get up and they're like, oh my God, that feels so much better. I said, well, if it was osteoarthritis, that adjustment didn't get rid of your osteoarthritis. How come you're feeling better? Sure. So there's an energetic, I mean, at different levels, there's so many levels, right? At the medical level, they're looking at matter, but we're not just matter, we're spirit and matter. And so this is what we're, yourself and myself are very concerned with, is what's going on in the space between the matter. That's where the work is. Yeah.
And what showed on the X-ray, he said, you shouldn't even be able to go down and touch your toes. But I could. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I was able to move. Like, I walked in fine. It wasn't like stumbling or needing a cane. And he said, are you feeling any, like, I wouldn't know. My body wouldn't know I have it.
Totally. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that patients would come in and, they'd come in for appointments. I would do X-rays, and the X-rays are just decrepit. And I'm like, are you okay? They're like, yeah, I'm fine. And then patients are like excruciating pain. I do their X-ray, and their X-rays were like pristine. And I'm like, it's not about the X-ray. It's not about the diagnosis. Right. Yeah. And so this is the double kind of double-edged sword of the diagnosis. On one hand, it helps us to help make sense of it. Yet on the other shadow side of the diagnosis is it becomes, to the person who has an unconscious motive, it becomes the excuse. It becomes the constraint. It becomes the prison that they're stuck in, right? And then especially if there's some sort of a financial gain with it, with insurance or whatever, that's why it's a huge red flag whenever. That's why I stopped working with compensation, insurance, because I only want to work with people that are concerned with healing, not with those that have an unconscious strategy to stay in the story of the symptoms and the pain. And it sounds very invalidating. Like, who would ever, everybody wants to heal. On a conscious level, yes, but there are unconscious parts within our shadow that has a hidden agenda to be sick. And that's a fact. To ask any doctors, and you can see it happening. And this is where I get criticized the most.
Right. So, chiropractor, coming into this energy work, what has been the biggest challenge you have faced in your now profession?
The biggest challenge that I face, just with other people or within myself,
either one would be a great topic.
The biggest challenge that I see is that the very thing that people are reaching out to me to heal will be the very thing that stops them. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Somebody comes in and says, I'm a leader. I run a business. My leadership is stuck. My business is stuck at this level. I'm not really able to communicate effectively. I fight. I freeze. I go into this freeze response, and that's impacting my leadership. So we start digging in, and we see that there's an unhealed relationship with mother who's highly narcissistic, and there's enmeshment with his mother. And so he has to he doesn't know how to have boundaries with her. There's unclear boundaries. So the only boundaries that he has is through avoidance or hiding. And so what'll happen is he'll sign up to work with us. And all of a sudden, when he gets triggered, the very thing he's signing up to get triggered by, it gets triggered, and he's not able to communicate directly because his nervous system is in a freeze. Mm-hmm. And the very thing that he's signing up to heal becomes the very thing that stops him from proceeding forward. He then gets activated, and then he has to retreat. Some stories come up, and all of a sudden he's like, whoa, that's too much. I feel overwhelmed, and then I got to run away, or I hide, or I ghost. So the very thing that's stopping them, that they're wanting to heal, is the thing that will stop them. Another great example. Gentleman is like, I'm tired of this codependency. I want to heal this. I'm ready to break this cycle. And so I say, okay, great. I have this event coming up. It's called the Overview Experience. We're going to help you heal this codependency, which is this constant experience of orienting to what your partner's doing, seeing your validation and approval is based on her experience, rather than, finding it from within. And you're ready. I'm ready to heal that. Okay, great. So the event is on Saturday, and here's what the times. And it's like, oh wait, I planned a date with my girlfriend. And I'm afraid that she's going to get upset if I choose to do this thing to heal myself. And it's like, the very thing that you reached out to me to sign up to heal, you now get to confront it right away. So to answer your question, the biggest challenge with my work is helping people see that the very thing that they're signing up to heal will be a test that they get to confront, and they either choose to lean in or run away. And the ones that run away, because I care so much about people's transformation, because I've gone through it myself, when they get confronted and triggered by the exact thing that they signed up to heal, they run away. And to see them not leaning in is probably one of the most challenging parts of my job, because I really, as a coach, I'm really rooting for people. So it's like, lean into the discomfort. Let her be upset with you for doing something different, which is choosing to heal you, which is, there's a huge amount of guilt and shame to choose yourself, right? But to do so will involve having to feel the very guilt that you're looking to resolve. So that's probably the most challenging part of my work.
And that's another example of to go through it. I often tell yoga students that, it's that asana that you hate the most that you probably need, right?
Isn't it like that? Isn't that the truth?
That. I mean, hiding, retreating, it doesn't work, because the lesson's going to keep coming. Just get through it, right? Learn what you need to learn, and then just ask the universe, listen, I'm done.
Exactly. You got it. That's 100%.
So as you're out navigating, doing such wonderful work, what are some qualities you look for in a trauma healer or Reiki practitioner, energy worker?
For a person that's on the path to healing?
Yeah, or even for yourself. Maybe you're interested in healing. What are some qualities that you look for in individuals who do?
Embodiment. The first thing that I look for in any type of leadership now, because of the work that I've done, I used to follow practitioners, healers that were super successful. But I realized that the type of person that has a healthy relationship, that's secure, that's polarized, where there's traction with one another, that level of skill and embodiment requires such nuance, such deep inner practice and work, and requires an identity of such growth that that's the new flex, right? Is that, are you in a healthy relationship? As your competency with your work is amazing, that's the first step. But do you have a partner that really still wants to be with you? Because, trauma healers, there's a billion of them out there. And especially the ones that have healed from toxic relationships, abuse, they're leading others in healing from trauma bonds and everything. The question is, are they in healthy relationships themselves? And to get from that place of going, from that victim stance to overcoming and surviving is one stage. But to go from that level to, I now have the capacity to contain a healthy relationship, that's a whole new level of rarity of deep inner work that most people haven't achieved. And so now I don't listen to people who aren't themselves in a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially as healers, we're going out and we want to help the world, right? We want to put that cape on and let's go save everyone. But this was intended, for you to begin to heal yourself too. And how I mentioned about pausing and taking a moment. I had a season where the abundance was flowing in, clients, students, you name it. And it was getting to that point where I was, edging towards that burnout. And you pause and you have the stalling of the clients and the students, because how long are they going to wait around? But it's taking that bold movement to say, listen, I really have to take my own advice here and stop and redirect. And I took, a month off of things and said, no, I got to really do some self-care and work on myself. And, and then as things come up, I mean, we're not perfect. Things will trigger, trigger proof, and having the tools like, okay, I feel the grief coming up. I feel the anger coming up. Oh my goodness, here's the worry, and then using those same tools on yourself to kind of get you to a nice space as well. So,
But there's nothing like an intimate partnership that really mirrors it. I mean, anybody can get up on stage and put on a good show, but you can't put on a show for your child or your partner. They see right through the show, right? And so I take a look and see, does a partner, is their connection magnetic? Because you can't fake it with your intimate partner. And so, because, in the beginning, I was living an outward life out there there was a gap between what I was putting out there and what I was living in my intimate life, because our relationship was an absolute shit show. But I remember feeling that and going, all right, I want to be the person whose private life and public life are exactly the same. And so the only way that can be demonstrated if there is a really solid, secure, intimate partnership. And so that's my biggest suggestion to people when you're looking for leaders, guides, is it really speaks a lot if their partner still wants to be with them, is there still that attraction with them, because you can't fake it. You can fake it out there, but you can't fake it with that person. And so that's where I look, and I can feel it when I see people with their partners.
Yeah, like looking at celebrities, right? I was told very young, don't meet your heroes because you'll be disappointed, right? Because of behind the scenes personal things going on. They've been married how many times and not talking to their kids, or have an alcohol problem, or they're into drugs. And
the celebrities, the Hollywood movie industry, it's all a mirage, right? And so that's why looking at intimate partnerships is a really good reflection of the truth of who that person is.
Right. So in the realm of trauma healing, what advice would you give someone who's just entering this profession?
as a profession, is to find a guide and keep going with your own work, because you can't lead people where you haven't been. And so if you're entering this profession, be prepared for every client to reflect something back to you that you need to continuously be working on. And so if you're entering this profession, you must be dedicated to a commitment of self-awareness, of having somebody hold up a mirror to your blind spots, of learning skills and tools to be able to use your triggers as a portal to find parts of you that you haven't really made contact with. And your work begins when you set out to, when you graduate or whatever, and you set out to do the work that you're doing. So find a guide. I'm constantly personally enrolled in some form of training within myself to refine my methodologies, to keep growing, really, because I'm confronted at new levels, and every level that you ascend to, ascension, there's kind of like a acclimatization period to your new height. So to really get ready for massive growth and discomfort at every level.
Right. It makes me think of years ago when I was divorcing my husband, he would always trigger me, just some of the things that he had put me through. And I had decided, you know what, I'm really tired of constantly being triggered when the phone rings or the text messages come. And I actually changed his name in the phone to teacher, because I was looking at it as these triggers are teaching me something. What is it about this that's triggering me? So it was
tired of being the victim.
Exactly. So it was the idea that when I saw it, teacher, breathe. What is he teaching me as I read this text message? And that really helped me through that, not to be so angry, and
it's a reframe. It's a very powerful reframe.
And even today, right before we connected, I was going through a bin and I found some things from the custody, and this is years ago now, and I looked at it and I was looking through calendars that I had, and I put these little affirmations of positivity and prayers and things, and I'm like, wow, I went through all that and I don't hate them today. Do you know? I was just like,
You've
grown. And that was the growth. And this calendar was from like 2013, and it was just all the prayers and things. So yeah, definitely reframing and seeing how it is with other people. You really have to work on that. It is a work in progress. Many people come because they see it on TV or that namaste, we're all love and light. But it's that shadow work. It's that deep work that you do. So what books do you recommend?
Well, my book is coming out next year, so I'm going to recommend that one. It's called Becoming Trigger Proof, a guide to break free from trauma bonds, heal codependency, and create secure love. But one of my favorite books to start the process is by Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul, that really helps to start to introduce people to the concept of separating you from the thoughts, that identity that we have that is constantly going. And then you're able to kind of become the awareness. And so any type of book that helps us disidentify from a label, a story, an identity that we've been unconsciously living, I'm all for it. Any Eckhart Tolle book, A New Earth, is fantastic. Books are an amazing guidepost of where to look, and the real work is the day-to-day practice. So making sure that you show up, you find a guide and a community that can kind of guide you in towards finding your own knowing rather than giving you the answers. I'm all for that.
Beautiful. So what services do you offer? Do you offer classes, events, trainings?
Yeah, it all begins with an event. One of my signature events is called the overview experience or the trigger proof experience, where I teach people how to take the thing that's conflicting you, triggering you the most, and spread it out over a day and really understand the mechanism of what's happening in your nervous system and using cognitive and somatic tools to rewire that reaction so that you can respond from a place of adulthood, bringing your adult self online. And so all of my offerings are really the teaching of the mastery of becoming trigger proof, of using our triggers, not something to avoid, but as a thing to dive into, to find parts of ourselves that we haven't really loved, and using that as the practice. So I have an academy, all of my trainings and events are serving the purpose of teaching people how to expand their capacity for the most challenging triggers in our lives as parents, as lovers, as leaders, and learning how to expand that space between stimulus and response so that you can respond rather than react. Clearly, from my own history, that became an important message for me. And so it's really about the mastery of rupture and repair, right? It's not about perfection. My wife and I, me as a dad, I'm not perfect. It's about, look, we're not perfect, but we have the skills once we disconnect, how to repair. So it's an academy of cycle breakers learning how to repair. It's
Beautiful.
Repair training.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you put in the nervous system. People just don't realize how important that is to work on that, especially since COVID. I mean,
It's
the
all
last
about that.
years, I mean, we're not realizing what we've endured. I mean, just to be like, okay, we have this, pandemic, and then all of a sudden, poof, we're back to reality. And we're not even sure how this is going to carry on in the next 10 years, 20 years. How is this going to affect our children? I mean,
yeah. The collective has gone through a massive nervous system dysregulation. During COVID, you can't fight, you can't flight, can't run. So everybody just went into freeze. And so the collective nervous system has gone into dysregulation. And so without learning how to operate that machinery, unknowingly, it's impacting our relationships. It's impacting our leadership.
Yeah. I did an event back last year at the community college, and it was a chair yoga event. And there were so many 19 and 20-year-olds with sciatic. They're like, I was diagnosed with sciatic. I got this, I got that. I'm just like blown away. Like, what? I mean, and they had such limited mobility sitting there, and then that made me think like, with COVID, sitting right in the chair and hunched forward,
and not working. So you're at home. So all of your relational issues bubbled to the surface. It was a great awakening for people. And
so it's military neck.
Never been a more important time to really focus on self-healing. And so this is what I'm all about.
Yeah. So it's amazing. I just like, wow, 19 years old. So where can we find you? Interested in a service or session?
Yeah. At the show notes, my team has provided a link that the best place to begin is to find out your attachment style. So when you fill out there's a quiz that really helps you identify if you're an anxious attached, if you're avoidant, if you're disorganized or secure. Getting that information of where you are in the beginning is the best place to begin. So now you know exactly where to put your focus. And from there, after you have that attachment style quiz, you can send me an email. I'm easy to find. All of the links should be on your show notes, and send me a DM with any questions or an email. And I'm right there. I'll be able to, me and my team will be able to respond within 24 hours.
Perfect. All right. Well, that ends the first part of our journey. I'm going to guide you into the second part, which are questions from listeners and energy workers, students. So number one, in your own words, you talk about that this is a specialty of yours. What is shadow work?
Yeah. What is shadow work? Shadow work saved my life. And Carl Jung labeled this term where when we grow up, we were conditioned to believe that certain parts of ourselves are really acceptable. You know, you be a good girl. You know, Tracy, you be a good girl, pleasant, nice, loves God, whatever it is in your family cultural system. You were given the message that these parts of you are good, but your angry part, your needy part, your emotional part, the sad part, the reactive parts, the sexual parts are bad. And so in order to fit in, we take those parts of us and then we dismiss them, we suppress them, we hide them, we lock them up in the basement. But that energy of those parts of us doesn't go away. It's there energetically. And so because it's locked in the basement and that energy is there, it creates a whole weird system within our psyche and our nervous system. It causes us to fracture and fragment from ourselves. It's called fragmentation. So we break these parts of us break free and they go into what's called our shadow. And throughout our lives, we live kind of normally, but then we encounter experiences where these shadows get triggered. So if I have this needy part of me when I was a child that was told, oh, your emotions are too much, I'm like, oh my gosh, this part of me is unacceptable. I will suppress that needy part of me, goes into the basement, but it doesn't go away. That energy is there. And what'll happen is I will be unconsciously pulled towards people who display that aspect of me that I'm denying. So I will push away my needy parts and I will become avoidant or detached emotionally. Guess what kind of person that I will be attracted to? People who are super duper needy, so that they display the very thing that I'm denying within myself, and I'll be triggered by them. I go, God, they're so needy. I'm become avoidant because I'm avoiding those needy parts of myself, and I can't get rid of them. So I will what's called project them outwards. So projection is a mechanism that our psyche uses uh, to project what's denied within ourselves, so we see it out there. So the things that really piss you off the most about other people, in a cosmic twist in which people hate, they can't handle when they become aware of this, is parts of yourself. And they say, no, no. And that is called the shadow. The shadow is the unwanted, dismissed, denied, repressed, disowned part of you that you dismissed or denied or disowned for protecting yourself to belong. And it shows up and it gets triggered and it kind of activates to help us find those parts to become whole, to what's called integrate them, to face them, to feel them, to bring compassion towards these younger parts of ourselves that we've hated all along, that cause us to split and fracture from ourselves, that gives us anxiety, that gives us feelings of unworthiness. Our shadow is meant to be seen, to be witnessed, to bring compassion to, so that we can then become our whole selves. And so once we find these parts of ourselves, we learn the methodology. What I call becoming trigger proof is the practice of learning how to stop running away from these parts of ourselves, to move towards them, to find them and to bring them home safely, which then causes you to become a more authentic person. You're then able to take off the mask. You're then not so concerned with what other people think of you, because we're afraid of other people's opinions of us because we're afraid of them reflecting the parts of us that we already can't stand, which is in our shadow. So when you integrate your shadow, other people's opinions of you, which colluded with your hatred of those parts of you, don't bother you anymore. So shadow work is your ticket to emotional freedom, safety in your own skin, non-reactivity, is really developing an intimate relationship energetically with your shadow.
Right. And it can start in childhood. And you use that example of, being a good girl. And that was one of the things through my childhood.
Girls don't get angry.
Right. And you keep quiet, and children are seen and not heard. And then as a young adult, I found myself getting triggered. But when I got triggered, I yelled, and that as a young parent, I'm like, I hate having that was the go-to, right? And you blow up, you let everything happen. And something that was so minor blow up. And I just didn't like that about myself. And so going to the healing, Reiki, doing what I needed to do so I could fix that part. So I wouldn't be so reactionary, that I could go from 0 to 1,000 and like, I just want to stop that. Yeah. And so, it takes work. And are we human? Yes. Are there times, okay, here it comes, but you know what to do to work on it. And then even when I have a slip, okay, I got to work on it. Thought I was done with this. No way. So yeah.
And we're never done with it. We're never done.
Yeah, never done with it. It's just a constant thing, because there's going to be moments where your voice isn't heard again, right? Here we go again. And what am I learning? Teachable moments for sure. Mm-hmm. So number 2, how does someone know if they have attachment wounds?
Yeah. How do you know if that you have attachment wounds is your experience of how you experience distress within a relationship. Right? The main attachment wounds, there are 2 of them that are kind of competing with one another. There's a part of us that is driven, that has a fear of abandonment. So that's one wound, is a fear of abandonment. And that fear of abandonment drives our need to connect. And then there's another one on this side called the fear of engulfment, the fear of being consumed by love, by responsibility, by the other person's emotions. Because as a child, you were maybe felt like you were abandoned as a child emotionally or physically, or you felt like you were engulfed by your mother's overbearingness or responsibility. So this fear of engulfment here drives our need for space. So within us, we have tension. This presents a problem for most of us that we haven't really identified, is that we have this fear of abandonment that drives our need for connection, and this fear of engulfment that drives our need for space. And you have that, and now you're in a relationship with somebody else who has that, and unconsciously we attract somebody who triggers and activates this fear of abandonment. How do you know that you have that running the show? Well, you're constantly preoccupied with what the other person is thinking. You're constantly wondering, is this person going to leave me? You start thinking, double, triple thinking into, oh my God, what do they mean by their text message? You're second guessing yourself. And every argument, you don't have the awareness that I'm going to be okay. It basically feels like death. I'm going to be left by myself, right? And attachment wounds, when we go through breakups, relational ruptures are painful, but when you have a fear of abandonment, you literally will go into experiences of deep, dark depression, like grief, where, it's persisting for like 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, right? And so when you're run by the fear of abandonment, you're being mistreated, but being alone is worse than staying in a shitty situation. Right. So that's the fear of abandonment. Now, fear of engulfment, how you know is that you want connection, but the second that things become really intimate or vulnerable, you're like, oh, get me the hell out of here. Oh my gosh, or you're chasing. But when the chase is over, this is the avoidant. Now the responsibility begins, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm overwhelmed. She's too needy. He's too needy. I need my space constantly. So how do you know you have attachment wounds? If you're finding yourself in the same patterns of push and pull dynamics, not necessarily with intimate partnerships, but also even with friendships, and to the point where the anxiety within relationships overtakes your your sense of peace of mind. And so because most of us weren't born with unicorn parents, we have parents that have their own attachment wounds, codependency. Most of us have some sort of a refinement, a part of us that can grow a little bit better. And so it's a work in progress. And if you're in business, if you have weaknesses in your business, it's wise to delegate them to other people who are better at it than you. But in relationships, we simply cannot delegate these weaknesses to others. We must work on them if we are to have relationships that feel secure.
Thank you for that. So your book is going to be coming out next year, Trigger Proof. But can you tell us a little bit, what's the best way that someone can be trigger proof?
What I discovered, and this is what the entire point of the book is about, is this is what I discovered, and I hadn't learned this anywhere. It came to me kind of in a meditation, is the moment that you get triggered, your nervous system unconsciously goes to a childlike state where you abandon yourself. Because as a child, in order for us to feel safe, the balance of, do I choose my authentic self, or which could lead to me having love removed, having love withdrawn, or do I choose attachment? Do I people please? Do I fawn? Do I kind of defer to whatever, is wanted or expected of me? In that moment, there's a face-off where you're choosing attachment versus authenticity. You are going to choose attachment every time because your survival depends on it. Right. So what I discovered is that we are hardwired to abandon ourselves for the sake of attachment. And every time we get triggered, we abandon ourselves. And what do I mean by abandoning ourselves? It's, let's say you show up late for an appointment. You and I are out for a coffee meeting, and you show up late, and I get triggered and I'm really angry. And so there's like mild irritant versus there is like severe anger and rage that I have. So whenever there is a reaction in a moment that is kind of like exaggerated beyond what the moment calls, then that means there's something historical that's been triggered. And in that moment, because you're late, the question that I get all of my students to ask is, what do I make that mean about me, that Tracy is late? Well, I make it mean that I'm not important. The thing is that Tracy is late for whatever reasons. The car broke down. She's got stuff on her mind. It's not because I'm not important. It's because Tracy had stuff going on. I'm the one that made it mean I'm not important. So I'm the one that abandoned myself, just like when I was a child, to be able to connect, to make sure that I was attached and connected. So becoming trigger proof is the art and neuroscience of using the trigger to find the source of your self-abandonment, where you believed that you're not enough, unworthy, unlovable, and you resolve that self-abandonment internally and integrate with that shadow that just got activated before you communicate to your partner, to the other person. And when you do that, when you take the time to master that skill, the conversation happens. Hey, Tracy, thanks for showing up. You came a few minutes late. I made up this story that I'm not important. What was going on with you? What happened there? Okay. Well, here's the thing. On future meetings, I'm going to have to make sure that you let me know in advance when something came up, so that, both of our times can be honored. And see, now I'm talking to you as my adult self, rather than had I not taken the time to integrate. You walk in, I'm like, oh, am I not important to you? And then now you're like getting all defensive.
Sure.
My childlike self has now activated your childlike self. And now we have a conflict of two inner children, two shadows clashing with one another, rather than
Yeah.
to adults because I took a moment to be able to integrate. And so that is the process of becoming trigger proof, is resolving the self-abandonment that automatically happens because we were conditioned since we were children. And I love teaching it to people who are ready. Because when you do this, you become an adult in relationships. And this is how you can have secure relationships.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen out there. It happens in here.
Right. Beautiful. Well, that was our third question. As we were talking, is there something that you have forgotten or want to share with listeners? The floor is yours.
Yeah, the only thing that I'd really want to leave you with is this quote that kind of another came to me in a dream, was that the highest form of forgiveness is the authentic recognition that everything served you and that there is nothing to forgive. And the goal of the inner work of becoming trigger proof is really about getting to that place. You may not feel, you may not feel like that's true for you right now, but just know that what's possible on the other side of the inner work is a level of freedom where you don't really get to a place where you have such profound understanding of yourself and the other person that you claimed or you feel who has hurt you, that you don't have to forgive yourself or anyone else to get to a place of understanding. And the highest form of forgiveness, I believe, is the authentic recognition that everything served you and that there is nothing to forgive.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you for those very wise words. And thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join me on Ready, Set, Reiki.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Beautiful. All right, my wonderful listeners, if you'd like your question featured on Ready, Set, Reiki, reach out to www.readysetreiki.com. Also, check me out on social media as well. So I hope everyone has an amazing and wonderful day, and be on the lookout for the Trigger Proof book. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. I'm Tracy Seawright, and this is Ready, Set,